Welcome to this very special episode of the Mol Belgie Recaps from Reality TV Warriors. My name is Michael Holmstone, and joining me as always is the Canadian who is taking sole responsibility for us calling Gilles Papa Bear and anything else he dislikes that we do, Logan Saunders.
Good morning.
And I'm very pleased to say that joining us for the second time, the first person ever to actually join us twice, is best friend of the podcast, Gilles de Coster.
Hi guys, hi.
Do we need to get the Papa Bear elephant in the room out of the way first?
I thought I mailed you once that I didn't like the nickname, but who am
You
I?
did.
Yeah, but I'm fine with it. You can nickname me all you want. It's okay.
Yeah, I emailed you at the end of the Greece season, just going, thanks for another great season, it was really fun, and you just sent me an email back saying, yeah, thanks for your nice words, stop calling me Papa Bear though, please.
I can live with it. It's okay.
No word of a lie, our podcast group chat on Facebook is actually called the Papa Bear Gilles de Coster Appreciation Society.
Which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, if I'm sort of taking the piss with my dad and I send him thanks Papa or whatever on text, it does try and automatically come up with Papa Bear, which is a little bit strange, but it makes me laugh every single time.
By the way, am I genuinely the only person to ever join you twice on the podcast? Because you need to look for better company if it is.
You genuinely are. Logan realised this about 5 minutes ago, but I worked it out a couple of weeks ago. You are the only person ever to join us twice.
Well, it's nice to be back. Thanks for having me.
And it's nice for you to be back, because I don't think we make any secret of the fact that we do love your show, and we do love you as a person. So it's just nice to catch up again after 3 years.
It's nice to hear. I mean, I'm still amazed by the fact that, English-speaking people watch our show and even podcast about it and share theories all over the internet. This is still very absurd to me as a Dutch-speaking host of a very small reality show that only is airing in Belgium. The fact that this is international makes me proud. So thanks to you and anyone else involved in making this or in watching the show.
Well, you're very welcome. The honour is ours, to be honest, because, I mean, I said this to Logan earlier, the questions that we had in for you this time vastly outnumbered last time. The feedback that we actually had with stuff like our First Suspicions list was vastly larger than it has been in previous years. It actually seems to be on an upward trajectory still.
That is amazing, because we have a very, or at least I think it's a growing viewership in the Netherlands as well. There's no language barrier there, so they can follow it more easily. But even then, that makes the show even bigger than it has ever been, and it's still incomprehensible to us because it is quintessentially Flemish what we do, and quintessentially Belgian. Our jokes and the way we tell stories and the way the character of our 10 players are. This is so Belgian that we are amazed that people outside of our borders still love to watch it.
We've learned so much from it. We never heard of Willie Summers before, and now he gets referenced on the podcast every couple weeks.
Yeah, well, he's huge. He's really huge in Belgium. This is in Flemish speaking Belgium. He is absolutely huge. So I'm very happy to further his career in the UK and in Canada.
It makes me laugh every single time I think of that Willie Summers episode last year and Logan's growing obsession with Willie Summers. It makes me laugh every single time he gets mentioned.
I understand.
He stopped responding to all of my obsessive direct messages on Instagram.
You probably shouldn't have asked for a lock of his hair. That was the step too far, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, most direct messages Willie Summers will receive will be from 50-ish ladies living in Belgium. So you should stand out, Logan. But I wouldn't do it anymore because I think he's had his fair share of stalkers. So if you don't want a restraining order, quit it.
Yeah, I don't want to get reported to Interpol.
So how have the past sort of year and a half been? Because obviously Belgium was very, very badly affected with COVID, and it's getting better, at least.
It is finally getting better. We're no longer the worst hit country in the world, which is kind of new to us because, like you say, for a year we were at the bottom of every possible list. But people start to get vaccinated. Not me yet. I'm too young, which is also a new feeling for me. But I'm not ready to be vaccinated, so I'm going to have to wait a couple of weeks, maybe a month, I don't know. But things are slowly returning to normal. We're allowed to have dinner in restaurants outside for the moment. So that makes life much more bearable. But otherwise, I think it has been the same as in Canada and UK. Total boredom and people staying in. So yeah, everyone's year 2020, 2021 should have been reasonably the same, I think.
Well, by the time that this episode actually comes out, Logan will be vaccinated at least once.
Oh, cool. All
I'm
right.
also in the too young bracket, unlike Logan.
Yeah, 5 days away. Canada loves hoarding all of the vaccine doses.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. I won't have told this story in the podcast yet, but one of my friends was below the age bracket, but sent me a message on Saturday saying that he'd just got vaccinated locally. And I went on a mad mission on Saturday to try and get my first dose.
No, but you should be. I mean, the UK is like with Israel, I think, world leader in the speed at which people are getting jabbed. So I think you shouldn't be waiting too much anymore, no?
Hopefully, it's becoming an absolute burden not being able to travel. I'm desperate to travel anywhere right now.
I can relate. I haven't traveled since Germany actually, so I miss it greatly.
Yeah, it was actually worse watching the finale last week, knowing that we should have been in Antwerp at that point. Just going, I really wish we could be by now. I'm just desperately missing everything to do with travel.
Probably next year we'll have a regular season with a regular season finale in the cinema complex here in Antwerp with loads of people. I hope so, and loads of hugs and kisses. I really hope so, but I think probably it's gonna be all right next year.
Hopefully. I mean, you might not have to invite Willie Summers just in case Logan can fly over, just to be safe.
Just to be on the safe side of things, we won't.
Or at least make sure Logan has to still do social distancing from Willie Summers. 2 meters plus, at least.
Or the general Belgian population, I guess.
On the subject of a regular season, have you got a location in mind next year? Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to say what it is, but have you got a location that you want to go to?
Well, I have loads of locations I want to go to, but not much of them are really suitable or available as shooting locations for our show, because sometimes it's too far away, sometimes it's too expensive, sometimes the weather isn't good, blah, blah, blah. But as for next season, we have selected a location already, so things are well underway, yeah.
Is it the one that was changed from this year or not?
It is not. No, it's a different one. We'll keep the one that we had to cancel maybe for a later season, because I mean we took some of the games that we were planning on playing there to Germany, so it would be too similar, I think, and this is why we chose a different location. COVID, of course, being the other main reason. We have to be able to shoot and to travel, and so it's still a little bit of a long shot, but we're confident.
Are there a lot of contingency plans in case COVID does impact things for shooting next season?
They are being set up, I'm told, but right now I'm still a little bit at the tail end of this season, so I haven't worked too much on the next. But yeah, of course, I mean, they were in place this year as well, but the contingency was it would have stopped. So if one of the contestants would have tested positive during the shooting period, then we wouldn't have a show. That's pretty much the contingency. You're at the mercy of a virus, which I hope we're learning to control right now, but you're still at the mercy of it. And if there's a big outbreak, it might very well affect the shooting. But let's cross fingers that doesn't happen.
Would that be the same for if the mole got medevaced then?
Probably, yeah. But any player, yeah, sure. That's I mean, if you really have a medical emergency with a regular player, it's possible that we would have let him go or her. I don't know. It's never happened, so I prefer not to think about those scenarios. But in the event, yeah, I mean, this is a risk we could not take in the midst of the second wave that was hitting Europe by full force, or just at the start of it. If we would have had a positive case, it was over. Game over. Simple as that.
Yeah, because I think there is a rumour that's come out in the past year that the Dutch version did have to swap moles mid-season.
What?
In one of their very early seasons.
Oh,
and I think
okay.
it was about episode 4, someone got medevaced, and then there's a rumour that person was actually the mole that's sort of come out in the past year.
I mean, you would have a hell of a last episode then to explain that. So it seems barely doable to change moles in the middle of a season. The mole is Lionel Messi. You do not take him off the pitch, or her. You don't know who Messi is, do you, Michael?
I do know. I know football. I just don't care for football necessarily, despite, living within about 10 miles of Old Trafford.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's Lionel Messi, Maradona, and that's about the extent of my knowledge.
Good.
I'd probably be in the bubble rather than be the one answering those trivia questions about the different soccer games.
I understand. Yeah.
From our point of view, this was a very interesting season because it's the first one where we've really honed in on the mole very quickly. And yet the contestants didn't. Did you actually expect Lennart to go so unsuspected by everyone for so long?
The way he played the game, no, never, because he was brutal, he was cheeky, he was gutsy, he was very outspoken in the group. So we actually thought of scenarios where maybe as soon as episode 2 people would get onto him. It didn't happen, and it shook us. Like every elimination again, we were looking at it and seeing no one even remotely thinking of Lennart, which was, of course, it's a great scenario to play with because it gives you a whole other layer in the finale. Because if they really don't know who it is, that's a very different ball game than for instance last year with Bart and Jolien really knowing that Alina is the mole. This is something completely different in their minds, and to be able to send 2 people in the final, knowing that they've pretty much stumbled into it, that does something with their self-confidence. And the third one had to play the shaken up player, Lennart, which he did brilliantly, by the way. So he had to be as non-confident as the other 2. So to us it was a dream, and of course to viewers it's very different because some people zone in on a mole very early on because he has a mole salamander that axolotl thing, or because he looks carefully, or he does something very innocent, and people take it as a hint, and then they're right, and then they call it too easy. But most people zone in on a mole by chance, or they have luck on their side that their theory is correct, but there's always 9 other theories that can be correct early on in the game. So what made you guys zone in on him?
Well, I know you don't alternate the gender of moles and stuff, but I'd felt like we were due a male mole anyway, just from the fact that the previous 2 had been female. And I just had a gut feeling about Lennart. I don't know what it was. I just had a gut feeling that he would be the sort of person that you would pick.
Well, you prove my point exactly, because the gender, we could pretty easily make 15 more seasons with all female moles. We wouldn't think twice about it. Really, we wouldn't, because every year it gets stronger, and the chance get slimmer that it's gonna be a female again. But that's something for us to play with. So that's the first. And second, it's a hunch, and which is cool, of course, but hunches can be wrong. I mean, of course they can be wrong, and they usually are. But it's fun when they're right. Yeah. So the viewer experience is you're sat very comfortably before your TV or your computer, and you're able to share theories with others. The players in the game don't really have that chance. They don't see everything, and they sure as hell cannot talk to each other about suspicions. I mean, they can, but it would be dumb.
I don't know what it was. I just had a gut feeling that it was him. But I have such vivid memories of the press room in the Vietnam finale where I was so wrong on Elizabeth, and I just had you howling in my ear from right behind me when
Yeah,
I shouted "fuck" that I was wrong.
that sounds like me.
I was fully expecting, as with every season, to go into the finale just going, I have no idea who it is, and I am so wrong, that it was a real surprise when it was actually Lennart this time.
Well, it's nice to be right, no?
It very, very rarely happens that I am on the right mole.
But am I wrong in saying that it doesn't really matter all that much? It's fun to watch, and whether you're right or not, to me, in my experience as a viewer 20 years ago, it didn't really matter. I loved watching the show and watching people do stupid things, basically.
I've said this many times. I actually prefer it if I go into the finale not knowing, because then I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
There's like an equal emotional investment to that reveal. Either you're going to be really excited that you got it right, or you're going to be pissed off and slamming your fist on the table that you got it wrong the whole time.
Yeah, but you're still a little bit amused at being pissed off because we got the better review throughout editing or throughout whatever. It's part of the fun game. It's part of the fun everyone's having making the show, but watching it as well, I think.
8 hours of podcasting and we still couldn't figure it out.
Well, that is usually how it ends up working for me, at least, isn't it? But it goes without saying that the reveals are so beautifully done. And I know I've said this to you before, but they are wonderful every single season.
Thank you. It's something we think about very, very extensively. What I think about this series is the cinematography of it is what pleases me most. It is beautiful to watch. There is the upside down drones. There is a very own TV language that we have chosen for this show, and we've maintained it throughout. And the reveal of the mole is like the culminating point of this. But we this is to me what I loved about this show. Everything looked wonderful, and it's very beautifully edited. And I mean, the praise for that should not go to me, but to the editors and our director. I mean, I saw the director a couple of weeks before we were left for shooting. He had, I think, 2,000 movie fragments, little bits that he had watched to say, maybe with this game I want to do that. Maybe with this game I want to do this. This music should be played there. He had it all in his head, and we hadn't started shooting yet. So this man is a genius, and I think he really shown it this year.
Yeah, it's odd for us because obviously last year we went back and actually covered Argentina and South Africa. So in the past 3 years, we have seen all 6 of these seasons. And I'm mainly thinking with the reveals like the South Africa one, where it was just in the middle of the national park in Pilanesberg. That was just beautifully shot.
Yeah.
And it's sort of nuts for us to watch and just go, how are they actually going to top this every single year?
Well, this is, I mean, I'm glad you raised that point because I always say we're not looking to top ourselves, to surpass ourselves. We're looking at, maintaining our self-imposed quality level and, to jump over that bar every year. That's what we want to do. We don't want to make it crazier or bigger or bolder because, I mean, that has a ceiling. Inevitably, you're going to hit that ceiling and you're going to come crashing down. And I don't want to do that to this show. So it should be different every year. So it's in a game reserve. This year it was in a theater where David Bowie wrote an album, which in itself was amazing to us. Last year it was just on a boat. It can be very simple. The dramatics of the moment more than make up for it.
Do past seasons actually affect your thinking going into a new season? So things like it was established in South Africa that you can't go home without a red screen when Hans is brought back, but then Jens does. Does that sort of play into it in your thinking?
No, but I mean, it's a minor detail, but of course we are huge nerds, so we know perfectly well what we said in South Africa. The thing is, with the rain, we were so delayed that we didn't have time to install the elimination screens. Point.
Ah,
That's it. Period. So he would have seen the red screen, but and we simply did not have the time. You see the cars leaving the cornfield. It's dark. I mean, normally we should have. I mean, the idea was to arrive in Germany when evening fell. So that tells you, and it was a 3-hour drive. So that tells you the delay we were working on. So yeah, we think about all these things, and Jens's exit for one. It was such a tough decision to make, but it was the only way the opening, which we thought of with 2 moles, would work. It's the only way. It's heartbreaking for him, but that is, of course, the nature of this game. It's a heartbreaking game sometimes. But, rest assured, we spent countless hours discussing it. Yeah, at length.
because it was our first thought when we saw that twist was, is Jens coming back? Because he never saw a red screen.
Yeah, no, I understand. Lots of people thought that he was coming back, but it was bad luck. It absolutely was bad luck. 5 questions. I think a lot of them had 1 out of 5, and he was just the slowest, and that's bad luck. But yeah, we felt bad as well. But there was no other way this could work. This opening sequence.
Is it also now Belgie Lore that any guy in his 20s called Martijn who's cast narrowly misses out on becoming the mole?
Yeah, that's actually quite. I didn't even think of that because we're still reeling from the shock that both moles were born on the same day in the same year. We discovered it well after shooting when we looked at both their files, and I thought someone has made a mistake. This is a mix-up. It cannot be that the 2 guys we selected to be potential moles turned out to be born on the exact same day. What are the odds? I don't know, but I'm gonna play the lottery. I'm sure.
So that was just serendipity then?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Did they also each have half a medallion that, when put together, makes a full medallion?
We should have thought of some, Harry Potter reference or anything, but I felt for Martijn as well because, of course, for him as well, it very short-lived adventure. He knew from the start, of course, he hadn't made the final cut, so this for him was an extra chance. In a way, he had all to play for. The day could only have a neutral or a good outcome if he were to become the mole. But to Lennart, of course, it was radically different. He had made the 10 contestants. He had something to lose. And Martijn knew that from the get-go. He was playing for a spot which was tough to attain, but he left the field with as much as he came with, no real place on the team. But it was heartbreaking for him as well, because this meant he has watched the whole series, knowing what was going to happen, knowing who the mole was, knowing and seeing all he missed out on. Yeah.
Was there any consideration to not revealing him at the reunion and potentially using him in a future season?
No, because too much people had seen him. Other attackers, people from our crew. This was his only chance, which of course makes it heartbreaking again. Plus, I think you need some closure. You need to reveal the attacking mole, because it's such a game changer in the beginning in the series that we cannot, be silent about it when we end things. No, you have to tell it how it happened and how they met that night in the corn. If we kept him a faceless entity, I think you would have been disappointed, and rightly so.
Yeah, that was my sort of impression of it last week when we were discussing it in our recap. I thought you kind of had to reveal him regardless of the fact that we'd never seen him before. You kind of had to give us that closure, because I don't think the twist would have landed as well had he still stayed as a faceless intruder and then potentially come back next season.
That is spot on. Of course, the reveal in itself is like meh, because you don't know this guy, so it doesn't really matter all that much. But he's an essential part of this story. He's as essential as Lennart is, because we spent as much time with him beforehand as we did with Lennart.
Is it the same for the other attackers? Are they eligible to come back or not?
I'm not sure, because first they would have to, apply again, like everyone else. But you have to know that the 10 contestants as well, they form a group. That this is a very balanced mix of people. Whereas the 10 attackers were just 10 people we were fond of, but there was not really a mix of people. So it maybe we could think of, taking one guy or one girl with us next year, but it's not on the priority list. Plus, I think everyone should get a new chance to participate in this adventure. So they had their chance, and even though they remained faceless, other people are still going to recognize them. So I'm not sure. It might be, but I don't really see it right now.
It became a very fun game for us when we were watching the previous seasons to try and spot people who were on future ones. Bruno from Greece is the main one because he's in the Vietnam finale montage.
Yeah, of course, because Bruno he's a great guy. He just didn't fit in that Vietnam mix that we made that year. Plus, we had another Bruno who maybe fit better in that group. But we knew back then, okay, Bruno might be a good, suitable candidate to take with us in a further or in the next series, which eventually happened. That sometimes happens, but you always have to ask them to apply again, which some of them don't. These things happen, of course. To us, it's important. Everyone should have the chance of applying and participating. It's a game for everyone, not just for people who have applied before.
How many people do you anticipate applying for the next season?
I'm a little bit afraid of that.
Based
We
on what
took our
happened last year?
Absolutely. Well, everything crashed last year because there was a limit. So that was a little bit of our own fault, of course, because everyone wanted to go online at once and at the same time. So this is happening at a much more sedate pace. They're trickling in, but it's already an impressive number. I've heard it 2 days ago, so it's probably obsolete again. I'm not going to tell you, but it's a lot again. It's really, really. There's a lot of people wanting to become my best friend, which I'll take as a compliment.
I mean, I would definitely take it as a compliment, the fact that more people every single season are trying to apply.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament to the growing success of the game, so who am I to complain?
On the two Bruno subjects, Carl wanted to know whether you would ever consider having two people with the same first name on a season and what you would do in that case.
They would have to be very special, I think. They would have to be both essential because we would have to be very, very much in love with them in order to take two Brunos in one season. It's a little bit, it might be fun to work with. I can see a lot of jokes and a lot of mix-up happening, and maybe I'm already liking it more than I did 10 seconds ago. But I'm not seeing it happening, no, unless they're very special.
Yeah, because I think that's only ever happened in one mole, which was the UK mole that Logan got cancelled, which had two people with the same name, two Chris's. But I don't think it's happened anywhere else.
How did that go? Was it fun to watch?
I don't think it was too confusing, because I think they just ended up saying Chris R and Chris H or whatever.
If that's the solution, then I don't want to do it. It has to be funny. We'd have to find nicknames.
Was it always intended that episode 1 would be a non-elimination?
No, it wasn't deliberate. But we were happy it happened because you lost Jens already, and losing a second contestant would have been very dark for an opening episode. So we were happy it happened. Most names were not that difficult to find, I will add. So we thought most of them would be found, and then Dami was not even the easiest one to find. I think Kevin was easier to find. Lennart was easier to find. So no, we didn't really plan anything there, but we were happy there was that feel-good moment on which to end the show.
Before crushing their souls by saying that Noah could still be the mole.
Yeah, but I mean, by then they should have figured that out already, because we never are we going to send in a player who cannot be the mole. So I'm still surprised. I was surprised.
It did make some very funny reactions, though, the fact that none of them had worked it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would only one person have gone home in the bunker if that had actually been an elimination?
That's right, yeah. Which would have made that game a little less edgy, I think, because, or maybe they would have considered the 5,000 euros or 3,000 euros more. I don't know. I was happy it was double, because that makes the pushing of that red button, you kind of condemn the other team to, be slaughtered. And, well, they still did not hesitate, but it would have been that, it would have had that outcome, just one player eliminated at the end of episode 2.
So going back to something you said earlier, John Dolan says, there's a passionate following outside of Belgium, including among those unfamiliar with Flemish culture or language. Do you have any thoughts or advice about how we can be supportive, appreciative viewers of the mole without burdening or detracting from a show that has, at its core, such a rare and beautifully Belgian spirit to it?
Wow, this is, first and foremost, it's an absolute compliment. I would say evangelize it. Spread the word that there's a great show in a little town called Belgium, in which you absolutely will have a laugh, but you will be entertained and you will be mystified by things happening. And there is no way. I'm getting a lot of praise for this series, and I don't deserve half of it, because my team has really lifted it up to the level it has reached. But I always send praise to them, and I always will forward everything I get to them. So best thing I can think of is, spread the word and make more people enjoy it. That would be the nicest thing you can do to us.
I mean, it's rightly deserved that your entire crew gets so much praise from our point of view. It's no secret the fact we adore the show, and I think that's a sentiment that is shared by an increasing amount of people every season.
Yeah, and we're so incredibly thankful for that. So we're thankful to and grateful to anyone who spreads that word by podcasting about it, or hosting web space about it, or just tweeting about the show, making memes. I don't care. Anything that has to do with the adventure that is the mole is welcome to us, because it means that it makes a difference. And this show is something people look forward to for 43 weeks in a year, and this makes us very, very lucky to be making the show and to be maintaining its standards. You should know we're very grateful, and this is why it's so important to us to reach out to the community as well, online or on podcasts or wherever it is, or with the finale, to be able to talk to people, because the show has a fan base, and it is very exceptional in TV land, that you have people so involved with the show who really want to, who really love the show and give a lot of feedback. It's quite unique, and we're absolutely aware of that.
It really came across when we were at the Vietnam finale, I have to say. Obviously, it's our sort of main experience with this, but every single person we came into contact with seemed very appreciative of us enjoying the show, and that was lovely to see, because a lot of the shows in the US and the UK especially are a little bit vicious when it comes to fan bases. Things like Big Brother. I mean, American Big Brother fans love to get people fired for things that they say on live feeds, and I would never imagine that would happen in the Mol communities. It always seems a very warm and friendly community.
It is, but I think both the shows are not really comparable. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Big Brother. I don't really like it because I don't think it always respects the people appearing on it, and this is probably the main focus of myself and my colleagues, is to respect any player that we select, and making them come out beautifully because they're beautiful people. So that's a whole different approach, and I think probably it's a different fan base as well. I mean, there will be some overlap, but I think it's quite different actually.
If Isidoor was on Big Brother, there would be a campaign for Isidoor to get fired, maybe.
The only comparable thing there is sort of massive fan bases that are sort of very passionate about the show. I mean, the show's a night and day.
You're right. The show's a night and day, but the people are so invested in it as a viewer, which is, of course, it's in 2021, it's important that your TV show is not just that hour on TV or anywhere else on demand, in which people watch it maybe with half an eye while doing other stuff. If you get people to get invested and to really love the story you're telling, it's much more interesting, to maintain it and to sustain it, because it's a very expensive show. So, but all of that aside, to us, it's like it's gratitude versus the people that watch it and love it and give us feedback, and love it as much as we do, which is important.
Yeah, I think that really comes across how much you guys enjoy making the show.
Yeah, it's the coolest job I can think of.
On the subject of Lennart pushing things, was there ever a point where you thought he was pushing things a bit too far? Is he the closest to a mole pushing it a bit too far, would you say?
With hindsight, no, but I remember a couple of times in Germany where I was thinking this guy is really, really bold, but he got away with it. I mean, he could only be so bold because he knew that everyone would forgive him. He could have said to the others, "I'm the mole. Just write my name in the test tonight, and you'll see that you get a green screen." He could have worn a T-shirt saying, "I'm the mole." He could have, I don't know, put some money on fire in front of the group. They still would have looked the other way. So he could get away from pretty much everything, and which made his moves a lot less bold when you know that. But it still takes some serious balls to do what he did.
Is there anything you've taken away from seeing Lennart's behave as the mole that you're going to take into briefing moles in future seasons?
No, because he did it in the Lennartist way possible. This it was as close to him as you could ever get. He's the guy that, if he eats a banana, he will drop it on the ground afterwards in the hopes that someone will fall over. Or this is who Lennart is. He's just that fun guy who everyone loves, and the way he played this adventure out is very related to who he is and how he comes across in a group. So that would probably be untrue for the next mole, because this person would have to do it otherwise, because just they're different persons.
Would he have been allowed to go above 10,000 euros for that bid for the exemption?
I mean, we didn't even know that he was going to go that high. So no one in their right mind would have thought that, he would have gotten away with 10K.
Except Bart?
Probably Bart was a little bit disappointed, and that it wasn't 10,200, because that's the exact amount he took out of the book. I mean, it would be Bart, yeah, to think that. But no, the original idea was that if he were to make a bid, it would be a lot less. But these things depend, of course, on how much you're being suspected in the group, and of course, if no one looks your way, then you're pretty much free to do as you like. But I mean, this was a kind of a turning point in the season, because loads of people really don't like the idea of the mole emptying the pot like that. But first of all, and as we explained, Lennart had been preparing this all along, all the season. He was always being the good guy throughout the series, always making choices for money, never for personal benefits, being the good guy, playing the mortally wounded team player whenever someone else chose an exemption or a personal benefit. And he maintained that throughout the series. Then he asked to go first in that diary room, very specifically to not look into the dossiers and, giving all other players a chance to block any sabotaging, because if no one looks, then the mole is pretty much powerless. And I think if this was a normal series, chances were that at least some of the others would have been onto him already by episode 6, and they could have kept their hands out of the dossiers as well to block the mole and to win money, which to me would have been an equally good story arc. But it didn't happen, and we haven't told Lennart who looked into the dossiers. Because we wanted, if you were to make a bid, we wanted to make it as level playing field as possible. And this is the important part. He had exactly the same chances as any other candidate at that point. So we didn't tell him to make a specific bid, but we would have thought if he were, it would be somewhere around 5K, and then he sits there and he doubles it. And but precisely because no one was onto him, he doubles it like almost a red arrow pointed at him, shouting, "Guys, look at me!" And then 2 seconds after he does that, he predicts they will congratulate me with it. They will grant me the 10K. They won't think twice about it. And not 11 seconds later in the show, you see Yasmin doing exactly that, congratulating him because he had been playing that good guy all along, while I might say still sabotaging an awful lot. So if you think of it, it's actually incredibly, incredibly gutsy. And in the end, he played like a regular player. He had no info. He made a move and he got away with it brilliantly. No different than Bart did last year, which everyone seems to accept. But why should the mole be allowed to do the same as a candidate, especially when he's totally unsuspected by the others and raising the stakes like he did? So to me, it's a brilliant sabotaging move, but one we were very our heart rate went up. I'll give you that. That evening in Berlin, our heart rates went up. But if you think about it, it's absolutely brilliant.
Did you split the 10 grand between you guys after the 10 grand was taken out of the pot? It's like, oh, well, little bonus for us for good work.
No, but we did get a bottle of wine from management actually, like yesterday from Bremer Kalmont, so the Riesling we visited, because and in a very funny note, they thanked us for the low pot this year, but more as a joke than anything else. No, we didn't see any of that money. Maybe I should have asked for it. Yeah.
I must admit, I am on the side of I don't particularly like the mole just being able to completely and utterly raid the pot. But I will say, Lennart's actions justified it, I think. It's acceptable for me because he did so much groundwork in the rest of the season to make it actually a palatable move for him as both player and a mole.
Yes, and other players were not powerless. I mean, take last year in episode 6, there are, I think, at that point, 2 people onto the mole. At that point, they can say, okay, we don't look into these dossiers. Then the mole cannot do so because it would be too obvious. You can block a person. And I agree with you. I'm not a fan of a mole raiding a pot. Absolutely not. But when he justifies it, when he prepares it, when he gives them the chance, to block him, and when he predicts that he will get away with it because he is so brilliantly bold and gutsy, then it's okay. I wouldn't have liked it last year if Bart turned out to be the mole. Then no one stands a chance because it's everyone bids, but you don't have to do anything for it. In this instance, there was a lot of preparing, and people were in principle able to cross him. They didn't, and he made his move.
Would people have been allowed to view their own video?
No, that was one of the off-screen rules, of course, because then you just you bet the whole group both, yeah, and then you keep the money. No, that's that wasn't a part of that game. It would have been a brilliant player move, but you would be the least suspected player in all history after it, I think. And it was very much Eastern Germany themed, and I don't think they would have given you that option in Eastern Germany.
It would have been a great sort of player sabotage, though, to just block the mole that way.
Absolutely. I love when players sabotage a mole like Baja did in Mexico to Peter. So I understand it's great to see, but in this case, that wasn't the object of this game, of course, and it would have been a too easy a way of blocking the mole.
Do you think Leonard would have had a tougher time with being hidden as the mole if, say, you had Baha and Lloyd swapped for Philip and Sven this season?
I don't know, because it that doesn't say much about Baha Lloyd or Sven or Philip. Every season is so different. Every group of players is so different. There is no point in comparing it. It could very well have been that Baha would have been out in episode 1 in Mexico. It could well have been that Kevin and Dami were our two finalists. A lot rests on coincidence. And it doesn't mean that Philip and Sven are clumsier or that Baha and Lloyd are smarter, because they're not. They're just different people, and sometimes you have to have a bit of luck. And Lennart sensed this very, very early on in the game. He knew in this group of people he had a chance to play the clown and the nice guy, and he knew exactly where to strike and where to withhold, and he did that so brilliantly. I think he would have probably, in any other year with the same contestants, might be maybe in another country, that some people would have gotten onto him. It's possible, but it's also possible that he would have been dropped into Mexico squad and rode it out gloriously until the end with no one suspecting him. Anything's possible in these games. You cannot you cannot predict it.
Does anyone ask Leonard if Analotta swim at Final Four instead of Philip?
Well, no, because they're on the wrong mole. But it's a shock ending, which we don't really like. There are certain rules to that effect, so if it ever happens, we're prepared for it. But in my view, I prefer it if a mole, gets a mast at the end of it, because that's what you're working to. But in this case, we knew we weren't going to need it, because after Philip got executed, Sven pretty much said it cannot be Annalot, and it has to be Lennart. I don't believe it, but I'm going to fill out the test with Lennart in mind. So we knew someone was at least bound to unmask the mole at the very last moment.
We know from previous seasons that you'd love to try out the challenges. Was there anything you tried out in Germany that then didn't make the end of reunion montage?
No, because COVID restricted that pretty much. I would have liked to fly the plane just to see how hard it was to sabotage or to change course. I would have loved to play bubble football, which I could have done, but we had to move on from Munich to Fronten that day, so there was no time for that. I think those are the two I would have liked to play. Yeah.
How long can you hold your breath? Did you try that one?
I'm pretty sure it's nowhere near 2 minutes 39.
That is the sort of thing that, at least if it was Argentina, they would turn around and make you practice, I think. In the same way that you hung off the bridge in the Ardennes.
They hung me off a bridge and then dropped me into a very cold October Belgian water. I don't recall the river, but it was cold. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would have liked it, but no, we often, we didn't have the time and the possibility with COVID and distancing and all the cleaning you have to do between shots. It just wasn't feasible.
It's a shame, really, because it's always the highlight of the end of the reunion montage for us, I think, is seeing what on earth they've actually made you do this season.
Well, I love Corona for it, for not having to dangle off a bridge this year. It's a breath of fresh air.
Just don't say the word
Yeah, I wouldn't have done that. I understand Sven very well. I think I would have been very, very afraid, because I don't trust ropes or bungees. I would jump off a plane with a chute, no worries. I mean, worries, but I would eventually do it. But ropes, I don't trust them. So I understand Sven in this instance.
Yeah, Logan keeps talking about doing the bridge jump in Greece when the world opens up again.
First of all, you should go to Greece. I think it's open for business. So if you're allowed to travel, it's probably at this moment, until we visit a better country, but the most beautiful country I've seen in Europe, with friendly people and amazing food, and it's not too expensive to travel around. So do it, and then absolutely go to Corinth Canal. There's the Belgie company is based there, so you can do it pretty much every day, and it's just it's these amazing surroundings and the glorious sunshine. We missed that a little bit this year, to be honest. In Germany, the sunshine wasn't really part of our daily routine.
Ironically, before COVID hit, and Logan and I were talking about going to the finale last year. We were going to go to Greece straight afterwards.
Oh,
And then we found out you were going to Greece, and it's like, that's a weird coincidence.
well, do it. As soon as you're allowed to, really, you will not be disappointed. Greece is an absolute fabulous country.
You know, and an odd twist too. Actually, when we got the email to come to the finale in Vietnam, I was in Greece at the time.
Oh, so you know it.
Yeah, I went to Athens and Thessaloniki, but we never made out to the Corinth Canal though.
Okay, Thessaloniki is where Kathy lives from the Argentina season.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, move on from Willie Summers, I guess.
After this podcast, do not go and camp out in Kathy's bushes.
No, I've seen Argentina enough to know how that would probably end.
She would shoot you right out of the bushes.
I think of everyone you've ever had on this show, Kathy probably scares me the most.
Well, she's one of the nicest people we've had on 6 series of the Mole. She's absolutely fantastic, and she plays the game in a very determined way. But that just makes her all the more cool to me. And she's actually really one of the nicest people you can talk to. So there's no need to be scared of. But I'm not going to send a weird Canadian into her garden. So please, Logan, stand aside.
I think it's just that she's a little bit intense at times. I think I wouldn't want to cross her.
No, but just a great way to play a game. I mean, she won the game by doing it like that. So kudos to her.
We had a question from HP12324 on Reddit saying, has there been any hints in the 6 seasons that you think in hindsight might have been a bit too obvious?
Yeah, probably in South Africa, where you could read Elin is the mole in Dutch in the giant word puzzle, letter puzzle that is included in, I think, the second episode. This was spotted then by some people, but it weirdly got drowned into other theories, and so it didn't really affect anyone's minds until after the reunion episode. But no, I don't think this year it was a little bit of a risk to wander with Lennart before the cameras of the real existing show Rehearsed. It was a little bit of a risk to include a 20 kilohertz audio signal for dogs, but it was so much fun that we couldn't resist the temptation of doing it. It was probably the riskiest one was flying over Mol, which is a little town in Belgium and which is really easily recognizable on that Google Maps footage they fly over. And when I see how much every frame is turned around and held against sunlight just to look for clues, then it amazes me that this specific one hasn't been found.
It's so frustrating for me because one of the major clues of the French mole season was a very similar one in that the mole's introduction was in front of a mountain called Mole. And it's like, how did I not spot this at the time?
Yeah, but I've said this before. I'm not a huge fan of these hints because they're part of the game, but we can only go so far because otherwise people would find us out, and then no one's having any fun anymore. So it always has to be a little bit twisted and this is of course the limits of that system. To us, it's never a priority. The hints. If we think of a good idea, we'll do it in a flash, in a heartbeat. But it's very difficult, and we prefer to throw away bad ideas than trying to implement them and reveal them all to everyone before the finale.
Every single time I watch the reunion, there is at least one clue where I go, oh, how did I not spot that? Or that is such a cool clue. And the one for me this time was definitely the signal for dogs. I'm like,
Yeah.
How did nobody spot this? This is brilliant.
Well, you should have a dog, of course, but the dog, it would have to be with you in the room. It would have to you have to watch the episodes, and you would have to maybe he barks at a car passing in the street. So it could have been anything for people to really notice that was pointed at the screen. And I think that's nice. I mean, that's the great thing about this. The dog would notice before you in the season in which we have a dog in the cast. It made me laugh when we thought about it, and I'm very glad that we did it.
So technically, Isidoor was onto the mole before Annalata and Sven were.
Way ahead of everyone else.
So when did you decide to go all in on having Isidoor in the cast? And what would have happened if nobody adopted Isidoor at the end of the season?
Well, there was a very specific plan because You have to be very, very careful when handling animals, of course, but in TV especially, because people, I mean, it's weird. If you tell an audience that 50 people have drowned in the Mediterranean trying to find a better life, they won't mind. But if a dog breaks a paw somewhere on TV, they're on the streets marching with torches like the Simpsons. So you have to be very, very careful. It's a weird thing. So the idea for Isidoor was when it became clear that we would be visiting the Olympic Park in Munich. It's an amazing city, and it's a great location. Knowing what took place there and knowing that Bayern Munich played there, to us it was great to be there. And then we saw that Waldi, which was a dachshund or a tekel, was the mascot of the '72 Olympics, and it's just a funny dog. It's like this sausage with four paws, a tekel. And then we thought, why not, introducing a dog to tend for, to care for, to walk, to feed, to play with. And then we thought it was a good idea. We thought very well about the feasibility of it. Would that dog be traumatized by being on this show? But it was surrounded by so much love. He came from a very good kennel where they know what they're doing, and he was. I think he was living with one of our producers for like 2 months before departure, and that would have been his definitive home should none of the candidates have wanted to adopt him. So we had a plan all along, and I'm actually really glad that we had him. Just think day two that he's introduced in the domino room. He already has his moment of glory by flipping the dominoes with Samina, which made us howl with laughter. So it was fun to do. I mean, we're not going to do it every year, but it was fun.
I'm assuming that Lennart had strict rules of how he could discourage Izzy from pressing the button.
Yeah, it's he was incredibly gentle with that dog, as was everyone. But I don't think they were very, very tenacious in teaching Izzy to push the button. They didn't really do it. So Leonard, he didn't have to do much to dissuade the dog from doing it. A couple of times he said, "No, don't touch the red button." But I think he did it a couple of times because it was clear that the dog, they weren't training him very well, which of course was their fault. So he didn't really have to do that.
Were you the one that came in the middle of the night to take Izzy away for the final challenge when they show the footage? No?
No. This was filmed by one of our female crews who actually slept with Annalotte in that room. So it was okay. There were no Me Too rules that were broken, or it was all done very quickly in a flash, and it was just to have the dog with us.
Bob Viverman on Twitter wanted to know on the subject of Izzy, was it a deliberate choice to introduce him on the episode that would air on the feast day of St. Isidore, or was it just a happy coincidence?
This is one of these crazy coincidences. We saw it, but he was introduced there because we were in Munich at that point in the game. It's as simple as that. Because Waldi was the mascot, and then it was World Animal Day as well, which we told in the episode. So no, this is one of the many, many weird coincidences that amaze us every year, time and again.
It was something I didn't realise until about 20 minutes before we started recording when Bob sent me that message, and I went, really? And then I looked it up, and it's St. Isidore's feast day on the 4th of April.
Yeah, no, this has nothing to do with it. No. Because at that point, we didn't even know when we would air exactly. I mean, these things are never discussed with us that long beforehand.
Was there a plan this year to do a Diary of the Mole segment or two?
We had them, but there was no real reason to do it. In Vietnam, it was introduced to capture the arc of the mole who didn't know she was going to be the mole until the first episode. And this is a very, very interesting process to follow. So that's why we created it back then. And with Alina last year, she had a couple of moments that were worth telling, as well. This year, we could have done it once or twice, but it wasn't necessary. And our episodes are still getting long enough. So it's one of the things we didn't deem necessary.
So if the creative need was there, it would potentially come back.
Probably, yeah. But one of the things you cannot tell there is no one's onto me, because that would make viewers able to make a puzzle. And so the other, no, not really. I mean, you could have you cannot tell the 10,000 euro sabotage as well, because that would be pointing to Lennart, to the viewer. So there was not really anything to work with. But of course, just the same as every mole, Lennart confided in us in the evening, sometimes felt lonely, sometimes boasted a little bit that he felt so good and that he was having the time of his life. But these things, in fine, they were not really interesting enough to put into the mole diary. There were other storylines that were much more interesting throughout the episodes.
HB12324 wanted to know as well, in the Belgian version, pasvragen can't be saved and have to be played at the next execution. What's the decision process behind that?
I don't really like the idea of being able to use them whenever you want, because to me it has to have an immediate effect. If you have pasvragen or an exemption, then they're effective immediately, and you cannot save them up for later, because then someone who would reach episode 6 could potentially save it up for episode 7 and then have a straight ticket to the last one. This is not the way the mole is played. To us, it's immediate, unless there's a game depending on it, when people can take him away or swap them, which we've done a couple of times in the past. But these personal benefits, there's a little of a problem there, because sometimes they are disruptive by nature. They can motivate the player to make choices that lose money. But I think in a way they have become too alluring. The choice is no longer difficult to throw away thousands of euros in order to save yourself. So we're thinking of ways to counter that. And I think a pasvraag or an exemption that you could swap or save would further render them disruptive and would make a decision easier to throw away a lot of money. And I think we've hit some kind of ceiling with that. So we're thinking about that.
Was there a concern after this season that there were maybe a few too many exemptions in play? Because there were more than normal.
There were a little more than normal. If you think of the first 2 episodes as exemptions, then they were. Of course, the one in the castle is not really an exemption, but because it could well have played out that no one got exempted. So that's one that luck and fate decided on. Of course, the bunker is, it is a prisoner's dilemma. And yes, of course, you give 5 people an exemption. It's a mass exemption if you think of it in that way. We didn't present it in that way, so as to not create the feeling that it's at every street corners there were exemptions to be won and to be had. But probably there were more than last year, and there will never be more than this, because I think it has hit the ceiling. But we have some ideas on how to counter that for next season.
It was Lennart was exempt 3 times this season, Michael?
Yeah, Lennart hit all 3 of them.
Yeah. He gets...
He was only technically vulnerable at, 4 tests was it? Even if he wasn't mole.
Well, in the first episode, it's not really an exemption for him, because he never would have had a red screen. And but okay, if you look at it as an exemption, okay. The second one very surely is one, because you and your group are through to the next episode. And then the last one was a very expensive one, yeah.
Do you think Lennart would have taken so many risks if people were onto him?
I mean, I don't know, because you never know how it would have played out. But the guy, he is cheeky by nature. That's who he is. So he would still have made an M out of his fingers whenever no one was watching but a camera. That's just who he is. But it would have been impossible for him to take 10,000 euros out of the pot. That's what he says himself. He could only do that because no one suspected him. So of course it would have been more difficult. But the fact that he remained undetected, I mean, it's by his doing. It's so he deserved that.
Were you surprised by how much the group seemed to be willing to throw away as much money as they did for pasvragen or exemptions this season?
There is an evolution in that, and it is inevitable, I guess, when you're doing lots of seasons of a reality TV show. I mean, if you recall the chain game in Argentina, in which they were all chained into some kind of warehouse. And the alternative was the luxury presidential suite in the Sheraton. No one slept there. No one took that exemption. I'm not sure that would happen again this year, because there is just that evolution. And things like the game with the exemptions this year, or the one with Bart last year, they make that ceiling go higher time and time again. And people, they come to play the mole not really for the money, but to stay in as long as possible, because it's the experience of a lifetime. So it gets easier every year for them to make that decision. So we were not surprised. But we are really thinking of putting a stop to it, because it should always be about, people playing a game with positive motivations, the urge to win money, to block the mole, to make things work. And that balance might be a little off, and will surely be totally off if we don't, if we're not watchful.
Yeah, Bart's ruined everything.
No, he didn't ruin anything. It was bound to happen sooner or later. It's just him. He took that role to smash that boundary and that ceiling last year, but it would have happened inevitably, I'm sure.
Chain Gang's a very interesting example you bringing it up, because I think it is worldwide the most played mole challenge now.
Yeah, but it's brilliant. It's a brilliant challenge.
It is a brilliant challenge. I mean, the French version did it in Kruger National Park with lions circling, for example.
Huh.
But it's really interesting seeing the logic that contestants and production crews use for Chain Gang, because every single one is different. I know we had a brief discussion about German Mole last year, but Germany used a very similar setup to yours, and yet someone did take the exemption in that case, even having to stay actually in a worse place than you left them in.
Whereas what I mean, I think it's not the same as in 2015 when we shot Argentina. It's just not the same. That's normal, I think. And in this way, we have to challenge ourselves and rethink these kind of challenges to make them interesting again, or to make these decisions harder again. But that's a great. We love to do that. We love to think about things like that. We have a couple of ideas to start of next season, which all already make my mouth water, because I know we're going to see and do great things again. That's just the beauty of this game. You need to reinvent it constantly without reinventing it.
Was that chain challenge shot in La Plata in Argentina?
No, it was Salta, I think. Yeah, Salta in the north west of the country. La Plata is near Buenos Aires. Is where we did the horse challenge.
Yeah, because I was in La Plata for a week. I went there 3 years ago, where I was there for a week.
Oh, cool. No, that one was in Salta.
Was there any consideration to doing anything in addition with Martijn during the season? Or was he just burned straight away, in your mind?
I mean, he was burned. Again, this is a man who just didn't make the selection we were going to leave for Germany with, and he was handed a unique chance to get there and to earn his place. But if that failed, of course, we couldn't make him do anything else, because he had played his role in that first fateful day. So no, I don't think there were any plans that went beyond that.
Nick Gates from Bother's Bar wants to know, was karaoke in the back of a van something that existed before the show, or was it something you made?
It's possible that it exists somewhere, but it is the archetypical element that gets invented in our weird crew. Because carpool and karaoke, if you combine the words, it springs to mind. Why hasn't anyone else thought of this? Of course, we're going to build a pool in a car, and they're going to have to sing. A lot of people ask us what drugs we are on. We're not, actually. Believe it or not, we're not. But there's so much fun in that. The humor of it is springs to mind directly, and we knew as soon as anyone uttered these words that we were going to do this, because it's just plain funny.
Yeah, I remember seeing that reveal of the van coming along and just going, this is such a de Mol Belgie idea. Like, no one else could get away with putting them in paddling pools in the back of a van and driving them around a course.
It is ridiculous, and despite appearances, this is a show that does not take itself too seriously. We have a very different theme when we are, for instance, airing the finale. It's very serious, and it's a huge ball of emotions. But actually, no one involved takes him or herself seriously, and it's the way to watch it. You're gonna have a laugh, and you're being led on a journey in which you will have to find and unmask a mole. But more importantly, you're watching a travel program and a human interest program and a game show and so much more things. So I don't like shows that take themselves seriously. And I think that there are a couple of foreign moles, like I think the Mole Germany, which I didn't like because it was also serious. And no, it's not serious. It's a game, and you have to. You should have a laugh watching it. It's so important to us.
Getting onto a rant about German Mole, I do a lot. They also did an elimination twist every single week. So we had the Ruth elimination twist, we had Joker on the run, we had 2 red screens where two people had to do a sudden death quiz in the next episode to survive, one of whom was the mole.
Yeah.
We had a takeoff of the Bertrand elimination at Final Four. It just became exhausting.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Sometimes you just want to end an episode with beautiful footage of the departed, and then that's it. And and look forward to next week. It doesn't have to have a game every time. But those are choices the crews make, and who am I to condemn them? It's just not choices we would make.
I mean, you say the finales are always kind of big balls of emotion, but then I think back to the Vietnam finale, which had Axel on a massage table doing karaoke. There is still the room for humour.
I know. I meant the actual finale with the test and the reveal. But you're right. No, absolutely. Humor should always be the integral part of the show. I mean, it was true this time as well with their yoga retreat moment. It's good to inject a little dose of fun before the big moment everyone's waiting for.
Do other TV programs inspire you for those sort of challenges?
No, not really, but I'm not the one thinking and dreaming up all these challenges, so I would have to ask them. But we watch and we see a lot, but ideas can come from locations, can come from history of the place, can come from cultural differences, can come from shows we have watched or some weird things. I remember someone saying, "We all laugh at the Japanese with the crazy game shows, but try to explain this," and then a picture of Sven and his chicken in the last episode. And it's true. I mean, if you show this in Japan, people will say, "Crazy Belgians, what is this?" So we watch a lot, but most of it gets changed and thrown away immediately. And then sometimes an idea hits the spot, and then we work on that.
Is SpongeBob SquarePants and Sex in the City amongst the shows that you watch?
No, neither of those actually. No, the other two I did watch, Game of Thrones and then Thailand, which is a Belgian show everyone loved here. But no, SpongeBob is way after my time, and Sex in the City is, well, not something I've caught on when it was airing live, but it did make for some really funny questions and funny moments in that episode, which, by the way, is my favorite challenge this year, I think. That afternoon, we done Lotte and Katrine binge watching, and the others, roaming through the Bavarian Alps. That was a glorious day and a glorious challenge in the episode.
Were there any challenges that fell flat for you this season?
Well, it was always a risk to do a hypnosis challenge because it could go either way. But there's always an explanation thanks to that. So that's a very difficult one because you don't have that in your hands. This guy is a regular. I mean, he's legit. He does shows. He knows what he's doing. This is a kind of mind game that is really, it's possible. So we didn't really were the masters of that, but it's okay. It turned out okay. Not the best challenge, but not the worst either. And then there was another one that didn't make the show because it fell in the water after the video clip with Takeo Ishii. We should have had a glorious game in the sunset, high in the Alps, with those 6 bubbles containing their visitors, and it was to be a game visually beautifully presented. And then different conversations with their loved ones. But it was a very stormy night again, and way too cold and too dangerous and too windy to shoot up at height. So we had to go back to the hotel and find another place and just make a human interest moment out of it. Just a reality moment in which all contestants saw their loved ones again. It's a pity, but of course, if I hadn't told you, you would never have known that we missed the challenge there. These things happen, It's such a crazy adventure. It's always a roller coaster, and almost nothing goes to plan. So we will just have to adapt.
I think Sven is still traumatized.
Yeah.
I know you said at the start of the season that it was a conscious effort to try and not really allude to the fact that it was filmed during COVID times as much as you could. And I have to say, I think you definitely succeeded. I think we said this last week that I don't think you could actually tell, with the exception of like Lennart and Sven going shopping for a suit wearing masks. I don't think you could tell that it was actually filmed during the Corona times.
I think there's that moment. There's another moment in which Philip goes to a bakery, and then probably some B-roll in cities where you see people walking by with face masks. But it was our priority not to write COVID into this series. And of course, in Belgium, I don't know how it is in the UK or in Canada, but when we say bubbles, in Belgium it's meant to designate a group of people you can have close contact with.
Yep, same here.
Okay, yeah. So, and which inspired the bubble football idea. But much more than that, we didn't want the virus to overshadow the series because it overshadows everything else. And this was to be maybe some sort of escapism. I don't know. And I'm very, very glad we managed.
I must say, watching this season has been a wonderful escape from the pandemic. It came at a very, very good time.
Well, that's a brilliant compliment, Logan. Thank you.
Was it a conscious effort to make this season more lighthearted as a result of the pandemic, or was that just something that came naturally with Germany as a location?
Well, of course, some cliches are very lighthearted by the nature of them, like the dirndls and the Bavarian customs we wrote into that song. But the lightheartedness to me is always a very, very important element of any Mol series, and I think you'll find it in any Mol series because we, the crew, are lighthearted, and we are like that. And the way you see the show, it's who we are. It's our sense of humor. So no, it was not a conscious effort, but I think having a Sven up until the finale with his very dry, sarcastic comments. I mean, this is dream. The guy who on Alexanderplatz said the Germans started the war with a straight face, and this makes it lighthearted. And I mean, this is why I love this show so much. This is why I don't ever want to do it with famous people because you lose that humor, a lot of humor if you do that.
I think it's no surprise to say that Sven was our favourite person this season.
How could he not be? Yeah.
At one point, we were keeping a running tally of things that Sven either hated or was allergic to.
Yeah, but he was coming across as very gruff, but actually this guy is such a sweet person, and I mean the dog thing is real, I think, but his cuddles and all the other stuff is just it's a little bit of an act, and he had the time of his life, and he's so grateful to us, and but we're very grateful to him, but he's a real sweet, very very funny man. And if you're ever in Belgium, you should go look up his bar because I'm told his croque monsieurs are fantastic. I haven't been able to go and see him, but I will in a very short while. And now it's just these guys are what makes them all fantastic. Yasmin, just the same. I loved Yasmin for the way she played it, for the way she never took herself seriously. Of course, our winner Annelotte, who was absolutely fabulous throughout the series and very, very genuine in every reaction she gave us. Philip, who was so funny to watch, so clumsy but so self-deprecating. I mean, this is a quality I love in people. So, any one of these 10, 11, I should say, I loved from the start, and they have been the right choice all along. They've shown that for 9 episodes.
I think the Sven being allergic to dogs thing really paid off with him being the one person who could make Izzy press the button last week.
But why would you send Sven to do that?
Exactly.
And Lotte at that time was suspecting Sven, so this is doubly weird. Why don't you do it yourself? So it's all those weird decisions, and then of course Sven who hesitates. And this is not even conscious molding. It is really hesitating because he doesn't know if he's gonna have to sneeze or I don't know what. But it's so funny to watch. In the end, we just had to watch to see him enter a set, and we were laughing because he's such a funny guy.
They'd have to earn 1,700 euros instead of 1,900 on that challenge because 200 would have had to be spent on an EpiPen for Sven from an allergic reaction.
I would not be surprised if we had let it go that far. I mean, this would have been entirely possible.
Is there anything you'd change about any of the previous 6 seasons, if you could? This came from Brandon, so you can't blame me for this question.
No, but it's a great question, but it's I should do some self introspection. I don't know. I don't think so. It went the way it went, and we learned from every series, and I think we made every series just a little bit prettier than the last one. The thing is, I'm most glad about is that we have set ourselves a very, very high quality bar with Argentina, and we have never been willing to not reach that, and it means working sometimes for 22 hours in a straight line. We had one shooting day of 26 hours this year. The one with the wine and then the bunker challenge. But it needs to be done to make this show as cool as it is, and we will never compromise on that. And changing anything? No, I don't think so. Probably some of my clothes in earlier seasons, which look ridiculous now, and probably I'm going to say hairstyles in a couple of years as well, or maybe now I will. But other than that, no, not a thing. I'm proud of every one of these seasons.
Speaking of ridiculous visuals, can't help but conjure the image of Celine being dressed up as a 90-year-old
Oh yeah,
Greek Olympian
yeah.
who we nicknamed Malice.
Yeah, but everyone remembers that. It's a silly way of playing a trick on the candidates, and I think I don't remember exactly the way we told it. I don't think you as a viewer were aware of it. You had to discover it at the same moment, but you knew Salim was going to do something because he had that message in the previous episode. But these kind of little details, whenever it's ridiculous, we're happy. And sometimes, if you think of it, 10 people sat together with one and a laptop showing a red or a green screen, it is ridiculous as well. I mean, it's not much to look at, but it's the mole. So you get away with it because it's either a very funny moment, either a very tense moment.
I have to say, I was listening to my liked songs on Spotify a few days ago, and the music that you play during the test scenes came up, and it terrified me in my headphones.
The final test or the regular test? Because that's Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, it was that one. It was the Ennio Morricone one. And it terrifies me even in my headphones. I'm like, I get on edge as soon as it's like I'm watching the program.
Absolutely, and music is so important. And we all have private playlists on Spotify in which we save every song we think might one day be appropriate for a scene, and we all do that in the crew. But of course, these are great times to do that because Spotify, everything is at your fingertips, so it's much easier than 10 years ago. But it's fantastic, and I love it as well. My liked songs, they're all movie scores and TV series, and it makes a great scene fantastic. You first have to have a great scene, but if you find the right music for it, then it gets really, really, really great.
Yeah, on the music subject, I just think back to the sneaky clue in Vietnam with Elizabeth singing Ready or Not at the end of the first episode. And the reveal of that, and me just going, oh my God, how have they snuck this past me? That was amazing.
But if you don't know that, then there's no way of being sure it's Elizabeth. But it's one of the funnier ones with it. Plus she's a very, very good singer.
The worst thing about that is the fact that I remember at the time trying to find that copy of Ready or Not on Spotify, and then obviously not being able to find it as a result.
Oh, you Shazammed it and you didn't find it?
Yeah, I didn't find it. I'm like, there's something up here. Why can't I find this version? And then never twigged.
Yeah, but Shazam always gives us that. I always think, probably too much background noise or not a good enough connection, and then I tend to forget about it. So we were hoping a lot of people would blame it on Shazam. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did at the time. Which is even more frustrating in hindsight that I probably should have twigged that maybe there was something up with it.
Well, you still wouldn't have found out it was Elizabeth, no? I mean, it would have been a stretch to think that, but
It might have sent me on the right lines.
yeah, maybe, who knows? We'll never know, Michael. You missed it.
Sliding doors moment, this. John Dolan wants to know, the show's popularity has increased tremendously and its viewers are encouraged to be overly engaged in all the details. Have you noticed that in personal ways, like walking down the street or people bothering you for information when you're trying to eat lunch?
Bother me for information, not so much because no one really wants to know who the mole is, because that would take away all their fun. But people tend to stare and to see what I put in my caddy in the supermarket. That happens, yeah, and people want selfies. A little bit less in COVID times, of course, but all of that just means this program is so popular. So I'm really not complaining. I don't like it very much because I'm quite a private person outside of my work. It means that people love your show, and you should take it, and I do, as a compliment.
Is it difficult to maintain a poker face when
No,
people are trying to read you?
no, not at all. No. You can throw anything you want at me. I've never even come close to divulging details I shouldn't be divulging. So no, this is like second nature to me. It's easy, and I find great pleasure in doing it. In setting people on the wrong foot and in confuse people. I absolutely adore it. It's a way of being for me.
I must admit, when I was putting the questions together from everyone sending them in, I'm like, yeah, he's not going to answer that one. He's 100% not going to answer that one. He'll evade that one. I'm just not going to ask him.
It's what I do, basically. It's what I do. After a series, I can answer most questions. There are some kitchen secrets we like to keep to ourselves, to be able to surprise people in the future. But those are not really special things. It's just little trade secrets we want to keep to ourselves. But most of the questions people ask me, I'm able to give some answers after the show has aired.
The main ones are things like, what's the consequence of opening Pandora's box in Greece, where I'm like, it's just not going to answer that one.
Well, they haven't been used, if you want to know. They have not been used, so they're still in our trick book, and maybe we'll sort them out later. Maybe we'll change them, tweak them, use them. I don't know. It's too good an idea to give up and never use again. So it's probably sooner or later will be coming across our path again.
Is the moles reveal rehearsed? I'm assuming it is.
It is, yes, absolutely. Yeah, of course. But very shortly, because it's not a long rehearsal, because it needs to happen very fast. So, the shots of the curtains are taken before, because in this case, because there's no one behind it, but you just need to close the shots. But everything that had Lennart in it, we shot it in one straight take, and I think maybe we let him walk on stage once more just to have a little extra footage. But that's enough. You don't want to overburden these three finalists at that point with extra shots. So we tend to, keep it very fast and short.
He didn't even have wardrobe until that same day either.
Yeah. I'm so happy he wore a suit in the end, because he looked great in it, and it's even cooler to see a guy coming from behind the curtains in that suit.
Did anyone take him aside right before the finale and go, you do realise you are actually going to have to dress up in some capacity for this finale, right?
Yeah, it's Sven. Sven told him, you're in the finale now. You don't have a suit. You're a moron. Let's go shopping. And then we didn't really have the time, but we created an hour, because we knew it was going to be hilarious to see Sven and Lennart shopping for a suit. But it's that little accent again that makes Lennart maybe a little unsuspicious in the eye of the beholder. So to us, it was a great idea. But his excuse is that, 2 weeks before departure, we sent out the email to all candidates. We're leaving in 2 weeks. This is your packing list. This is what you need. You need clothes for this and that. You need a toothbrush, like just what you need. And in the event you get to the finale, try to have a suit or a beautiful dress you would like to shine in. And of course, he didn't have a suit at home, Lennart, but he was too afraid to go out and buy a suit, because then his mom or his girlfriend would ask him, why did you buy a suit? And he didn't want to run that risk. So that way he left without a suit.
It'd be funny to have them all revealed there in a t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah, I'm glad he did show up in a suit eventually.
I just love the visual of Lennart basically being wheeled in on an armchair of some description, just kind of watching TV, just chilling.
That would probably have been pretty spot on, knowing the guy. We could have probably done that with him.
Well, you had the shoplifting challenge in Greece. The final challenge for this season could have just been Lennart having to shoplift a suit from one of the German boutiques.
Yeah, I don't think the Germans would have liked that very much. It was difficult enough to pull off in Greece, so the Germans would have said, no, thank you, we don't like that. No, I'm sorry. I love every German alive on the face of the earth. They were absolutely nice to us and great, so I'm sorry if I just did a very bad impression of a German store owner.
Did you have to approach many shops before a store manager was willing to say yes to have people come in and try to shoplift?
I don't remember. I think it was difficult, yeah, because they didn't understand the game we were playing. But why do you want to steal things and then pay for them? Is this a test? And so it took some persuasion, but I don't remember how much shops. I just know it wasn't that easy to find.
Nick wanted to know whether it took much persuasion to get Sven in a wedding dress.
No, none whatsoever. This is something you cannot know if you're a non-Belgian. He is born and bred in Aalst, this small town in Flanders. They have a UNESCO World Heritage Carnival in Aalst, and it means the world to that whole city. So everyone dresses up at least once a year, and to him a wedding dress and inline skates, it's like Saturday evening. So it's okay. We didn't take much convincing. No.
Was it deliberate that Sven was chosen for that challenge? Or was it just kind of luck of the draw with where he was?
No, I don't think it's deliberate. There was it. Well, of course, it wouldn't be an a lot because it's funnier if it were a man. But they kind of decided on the order themselves. I asked them on the phone which order you want to do it in, and I think Philip came first, and then Lenny second. I don't remember, but probably it was written especially for him because it was not going to bother him in the slightest. I can think of people who wouldn't want to do that because it's too ridiculous. So yeah, but the little challenges they just had to be ridiculous and absurd and difficult to explain. They didn't have to be difficult, so they were all as equally easy or difficult as you would have made them. The idea was they should get their pasvraag, and the game is played in the story below, where it's about trying to make the others pronounce the three words.
The visual of Sven coming into the room with a wedding dress and roller skates on, I think, will stay with me for a while. It made me laugh a lot.
That was the intention, yeah.
Has anyone, contestant-wise, ever found it difficult to adjust coming back?
Yes, absolutely. And that's perfectly understandable because in the ideal event, they spend 3 weeks with us and then they come back and they cannot tell a single soul about it. Perhaps their spouses or their girlfriends or husbands, but you cannot tell anyone you have had this epic, momentous journey with all weird kinds of adventures because it has to remain a secret up until the point we reveal who the candidates are. So it's very hard on most of them. The first couple of weeks are just back to reality, and that's hard. And but they're in touch with us all the time, so they can always call us. I always give my number to the contestants, so if they need anything, they can call me or any number of my colleagues. I think 10 persons, something like that. They can contact anytime. So we try to be mindful of that, but it's not easy, and I can understand that.
I mean, I'm not at all surprised by that answer, given the sort of love that you can feel coming from the show, that it's a very supportive team.
Yeah, it's supportive because they make our show. If we have a bad cast, if we treat them badly, they will give us a bad show. It's as simple as that. But also, if we select you for the mole, if you are told you're coming with us, it means we absolutely love you. It means we all fell in love with you, and we wanted you to come on this trip. So it goes both ways. We love them for what they do, and they love us right back for giving them this opportunity. And I think the care we show one another is testament to how much we love the show. And we're all people cut from the same wood.
Well, I guess it kind of goes similar with the audition tapes. What's the strangest audition tape you've ever seen sent in?
You're gonna need an explicit warning on the podcast
That's
because I
fine.
think I mean I've not watched all of them, of course, because the first selection is made by others, but there are some really really weird things people on what I can only assume to be sex swings. The magic tricks is something a lot of people do, and it's always very funny. But it doesn't mean it gets you in the show because we prefer that you have a very ugly selfie video just talking to us, and we're not interested in showmanship or in a beautiful garden or in your dog or anything else. We just want to hear you talk, and if we like that, we'll invite you. But I was at work the other day, and there are maybe 5 or 6 people at this point watching the short videos, and they laugh every 10 minutes, I think. So I think they come across a lot of weird stuff. Yeah.
I mean, you guys did let on somebody who was a fan of axolotls.
Absolutely, yeah. But the way he explains it, I mean, and it's just a funny animal to watch. But this is a little quirk of Lennart. But of course, we selected him because he's such a nice guy and he's just so fun and so nice to work with. But yeah, weirdos are welcome on the show as well. If you have a quirky little habit, it's only funny and great. And the one thing I wish we could do easier is have more diversity. But it's very, very, very difficult to motivate people from different color or religion or anything else to apply for the show. It's still mainly a Belgian Flemish thing, whereas I would like to have people from Brussels and people that have come from countries all over the world, and to have that diversity that is part of all of our lives now, to have that a little bit more in the show, but that's still difficult.
Yeah. Joey9221 on Reddit wanted to know whether Dutch people can apply.
Yeah, sure. You stand just as much of a chance as any Belgian. There's no reason for us not to allow Dutch people. Yeah, so go ahead.
I'm sure that will make a lot of people very, very happy to hear that answer.
Yes, of course. One of the basic things is you have to be able to speak Dutch, because I know your next question is going to be: are people from Greater Manchester area allowed as well?
I know full well that I would absolutely fudge it. I'm much happier just kind of sitting here bitching about people.
Yeah. Well, it's a very funny thing to do as well.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If UK Mole ever came back, I would be on it like a rash. I would be immediately applying. But I know my limits here. I'm not under any illusions. Dan Peak says, I love your sense of humour. Just how much did you enjoy the self-narrating bomb eating challenge in episode 4? It sounded like you enjoyed it immensely.
Yes, I did. Absolutely. It was one of the funniest things to do in 6 seasons.
Especially when Samina gets it again in the reunion.
Yeah, of course, I couldn't resist, but it was a joke that was writing itself, and her reaction was so lame, and I mean, she laughs at it afterwards. Afterwards, we laughed at it, and she realizes it's a futile attempt to save a skin, but it's not an easy one, because you had to explain that game to them, and all the intricacies of it, and that there were quite some intricacies of it, so it wasn't easy. So I had a couple of sentences that I had written that we had really well thought of to in one sentence capture the essence of the game to make them play it. But there's a lot of improvising, and I have had a lot of fun doing it. Absolutely.
Were there any instructions that got cut for time?
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, the thing with a challenge like that, you have to try a lot to have a couple of funny moments. So I have tried some things in the beginning just to make them comfortable with this weird godlike voice who's basically laughing at them. So I've tried a couple of things, and some have worked, some haven't. But then in the end, you have to withdraw a little bit because the game gets played and it gets precedence. Of course, it's much more important to have that game played with the bomb than have the weird god laughing at them. So yeah, some bits got edited out. Yeah.
Is that one of the benefits, I guess, of filming during COVID is that you were able to experiment with a challenge like that, where you get to have the God narration through in a couple of the challenges?
Well, the God narration didn't have anything to do with COVID. We would have done it in a normal season as well, because it's just so funny. Because they don't expect it, and because it's like breaking the fourth wall of TV. It's like acknowledging that TV is a very constructed medium in which a voice, which has been read or spoken afterwards, tells you what's happening, and suddenly it's live. That was the idea we wanted to play with. It didn't have anything to do with COVID as well. But to us, COVID was only a pest because we had to wear masks and keep our distance, and I couldn't cuddle any of them when they got executed, and we had to drive separately, and we had to sleep in different hotels, and we had to keep our distance on the set, and disinfectant everywhere every day, and a test every 3 days, I think it was. So we hated it. And so it didn't inspire us very much. It worked against us, and we're very happy to have overcome it, actually.
As I said earlier, I don't think you could actually really tell it was done in COVID times unless you looked carefully. And obviously, from your point of view, it's disappointing you can't console people as they're getting executed or whatever. But even with the reunions, it was just nice to see everyone in the same place for this year's reunion.
It is because last year we couldn't do it because it was the midst of the first wave, and people really assigned at home, and you couldn't you couldn't come out of your door. So no, we were happy as well, but it's still way better when they can all touch each other and then take them into their arms, and this is much more fun to look at. It's much more fun to see people embracing and cuddling than it is to not see that. But that's just the reality we live in for the moment, and hopefully next year we'll be rid of it.
Is 18 the youngest for the contestant can be for the mole? Is 18 the bottom line?
Yeah, I think so. I think you need to be 18 years old because there's money to be won, and the law is that in order to win money you have to be 18 years old or older. So yeah, we couldn't take anyone from 16, 17, but I don't think it would be a very wise idea. I think 18 is really the youngest we can go.
Yeah, especially with how mentally taxing and exhausting it would be during and afterwards too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and Noah didn't show any strain because he took it greatly and is just a good guy and is very mature for his age. But, if you're unlucky, you get someone who isn't that stable. And, I don't know about you guys, but when I was 16, 17, I sure as hell wouldn't have coped very well with the pressure that comes with mole participation.
Oh no, I 100% wouldn't. I mean, I've lost twice on game shows, and it still crushes me now 3 years later.
Yeah, let it go, man.
I do need to get over it at some point, but not yet. I still go to bed crying every night about it.
That's just so sad.
I hosted a mole game at my house when I was 16, but that was it.
Well, that's the best. I mean, you cannot go any higher than that. Hosting this show is the best you can hope for in this life. I mean, it's the best I could hope for, and I got it, so I'm very happy.
Have you got anything else, Logan?
I think we just naturally hit on a bunch of the questions, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I've not got many uncrossed questions on my list now. I have one final question, you see, which is definitely gonna be the end, I think. How do we get a vrijstelling, pasvragen, or one of the mole sweaters?
The mole sweaters are available online, I think.
We can't send them to the UK. That's the problem.
So then I would have to consult with Lise, who is our press attaché, who you know. She would probably be able to fix it. I don't know. And the wooden chips that are vrijstellingen and pasvragen, if you really want, we have loads of them back at Woestijn, so I could set some aside. But probably I should hold off on this until we see you next year at the finale, and then give you that end of sweater as a gift at that moment.
Deal.
Cool.
Can definitely do that.
Actually, there was one question I don't think that we touched upon. You guys have now had 2 ties for the final quiz in 6 seasons. Are you still happy with how the tie was broken? Like for next finale, instead of doing 30 questions, would there be 40 questions to avoid any sort of tie scenario?
The tie doesn't really matter because as a viewer, you're only informed afterwards because it doesn't really add to the tension you already have. But to them, it is extreme tension, and then you really get the deserved winner. Whoever gets to cope with that pressure at that precise moment, when I come on stage and I tell them, you guys are deadlocked, the terror in these eyes is immeasurable. So these 10 extra questions, then on that same computer who is drenched in sweat, and the time is running this time because that's the difference, of course. It gives you all the closures you need. So to me, it's a perfectly acceptable way of breaking the tie.
Is there anything that you would want anyone listening to know, Joe?
No, and I mean I think we've covered pretty much all of it, and only that I'm grateful for everyone tuning into the show and being so thrilled about it. It's the greatest gift you can give us, and you keep delivering it every year. So to us, it gives us all the fuel we need to be starting on the next one, which we are. I mean, I'm going to take some time off now, but afterwards I will dive in headfirst to make next season at least as memorable as this one.
So you got a green screen then?
I might hope so, yeah.
No orange screen this time.
No orange screen, no.
I don't think anyone, either me or Logan or anyone listening, would have any doubt that you're gonna try and make next season at least as good as this one was, because this was a really good season.
Well, thank you very much. That's our aim to do that again. Absolutely.
I say this every single year, but I don't think you've had a bad season in 6.
No, I don't think so too. And this is not being arrogant, but it's a very, very difficult thing to attain. After 6 seasons, being able to say not one of them stood out in the negative way is a testament to how hard we think about everything and how we cover every possible exit and how we think things through and how hard we work. And it's just that there's no real secret to it. It's just, hard work and dedication and love for the show, for this specific brilliant format. And I hope to never make the season that people are going to call superfluous or the season too much, because that would be my biggest nightmare, to be delivering a season that is not up to standard. But we will not let that happen. It's just we don't have that in us, so it's probably not going to happen. But we were very mindful of that. Yeah.
It feels like I'm blowing smoke every single time I say this, every single season, but it is the highlight of our year every single time we get to cover it.
Well, that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, we think of all the other shows that we've covered over, how long we've been podcasting, Michael? About 7.5 years, and watching reality TV forever, and thinking of all the other shows that have 1 or 2 bad seasons in the first 6. So it's truly impressive that you guys have been able to do 6 seasons now and never had like, oh, this season just didn't work out too well, or oh, it's too bad that this happened. It's always A+ material every time.
Well, thank you so much. It's the one and only goal we have is to have people say that and or feel that and enjoy every episode and every series as much as the next or the previous one. So we'll try to keep that up.
No pressure.
We're not putting any pressure on, but
No.
Logan might kill himself if you do a bad season next year.
Red screen.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening all season to our Mol Belgie recaps. We'll be back on June 30th to begin covering Mol Georgia. Don't forget you can contact us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, where we are RTV Warriors, or you can email us on contact@rtvwarriors.com. Logan's on Twitter at Logsquacky, and I am MJ Harmstone. We'll see you soon.
Peace out and just chill until the next deployment.
Cheers, you guys.
Stay tuned for scenes from our next episodes. Still to come this year on Reality TV Warriors. Logan, Anthony, and Michelle are all back.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello, I'm back. Woohoo!
We cover Mol Georgia. We were always going to start with Georgia because Georgia has probably the most jaw-dropping mole episode I think I have ever seen. Hunted UK Series 1.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because even in episode 1, he's the chief, but it's all about Sherlock and Blacks.
Amazing Race 3 and Mol Oregon.
Yeah, I assume if you're going to go to Oregon, that's not going to be like a last-minute decision, like, oh, we're going to go to Oregon.
There are highs.
No way.
Lows.
Like, I don't have any major memories associated with her. Like, I don't remember the storyline of her challenging what her role is supposed to be in a challenge. Say, no, I want to be in that other group. I've changed my mind. I don't remember that whole subplot.
And a whole lot more. Some will even lose their mind.
Brilliant.
Steve.
Some may discover Logan's video collection.
Leonardo DiCaprio bestiality scene, please.
And some will just discover the wonder of Olcay Goulson. I've said it before, I think it's a very understandable reaction when you're faced with Olcay to be a little bit scared of her and just do what she wants is much easier. From June 30th, join us for a bumper year of podcasts on Reality TV Warriors, including our 400th episode in November. See you soon.
It is a kink.
Steve.